company things are going well. Big part of why you're here is an incident happens based on medication that you're misprescribed through the VA. Can you tell us about, the medication, like what led to you being prescribed that, and then ultimately what happened and what's going on now with this court problem?
Yes, absolutely. So back in 2017, while I was pushing out on these deployments with JSOC, we're working highly complicated missions. I'm controlling multiple lines of ISR, incorporating signals intelligence, human intelligence, GeoInt, everything you can imagine, pulling all of that data together. I'm staring in front of a computer screen, 18-hour days, and the jock is just crushing me. And by this point, I'd just come back from that first deployment doing this. And in 2016, I came back. And then 2017, I found myself just not performing well. The effects of my time in the military and these deployments are starting to compound. I'm getting older. The symptoms of my PTSD and TBI are really kicking in. I'm having trouble sleeping at night. I've got horrible night sweats, night terrors. A lot of, honestly, survivor's guilt. Just dealing with all the friends and brothers that I lost over there, and having come out of the shadows of some of that. I went to the VA. That's what we're told to do. Go get help. And, so I went to them and told them, hey, these are my symptoms. I had a coworker that, was a veteran, also special ops guy. He came from the Green Berets, and, he told me, hey, I went to the VA and they gave me this. It was, I think they gave him Provigil was the medication. And it really helped him, so I went to my, community-based outpatient clinic, which was down in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and engaged with my primary care doctor, explained what was going on. I told him that, I have these issues going on. I can't focus at work. I'm falling asleep. I'm having trouble staying awake, staying alert, staying focused on task. And my sleep is just horrendous, so there's I'm in this cycle that I can't get out of. And I have this friend that is on this medication and it seems to be helping him. Is there an opportunity for me? And they said, well, there's this other version of that called Nuvigil. We could put you on that. And then, so I did it and got it prescribed. And this was fall of 2017. I'm getting ready for another deployment to go back out the door. And they gave me, a 30-day prescription of this. It's a highly controlled substance, so there's certain protocols they got to follow. And so I go to request a 120-day supply because I'm going to be deployed for 4 months. And, the VA says they can't do that without a sleep study. But I'm pumping out in 2 days, and they want me to come sleep overnight for 2 days. And I just can't do it. I got to get doctor appointments, all these things, and get cleared hot to go to deploy. And this is my livelihood. This is how I make my money, support my family. So, I told them I cannot make this sleep study. Is there something else that we could do? And I'm, this is all documented through VA's secure messaging platform. So the doctor calls me and she's like, hey, we have a, possible solution here. We could transfer the medication to a civilian provider because you have, civilian insurance through your job. And ultimately we'll just transfer the medication. We'll maintain oversight, and it's still in your records. We know that you're taking it and watching for other, contraindications, other medications, things like that. Right. And so I'd find a civilian doctor that'll give me that 120-day supply so I can go deploy with it. And that's what we did. The VA kept me on it. Looking back in retrospect, we just found this new study from the FDA that you should not be on this for over 12 weeks at a time. I was on it for 4.5 years. Oh, and wow. the longest known study only lasted 2 years, and they ended it because everyone started getting psychosis and hallucinations.
Wow.
And it's a known side effect of this drug, but I was never informed of these things,
Did it do what it was supposed to do work-wise?
It did. It's considered a stimulant. So the idea is you take it in the morning, it regulates your ups so that your body's like on point when you need to be. And then it kind of tailors off and your body's natural circadian rhythm takes over and you go to sleep. And it worked. It was working for me. I was able to function at work again. I went forward on that deployment and absolutely crushed it. It's kind of, I think the movie Limitless is based on this drug.
Oh, okay.
So that gives you an idea of like the power of it.
Did they entertain, trying to think of the, like Adderall or Vyvanse or any of that kind of stuff instead, or?
It just, I don't know. It didn't come up. Because I had
that stuff is probably any better, I think, for that amount of time. I don't know. I know a lot of people are on that shit, but.
Right. And for the most part, I thought I was being responsible with it. Even with the length of time I was taking it, I was only taking it when I was working.
Yeah.
So like I had periods of time where I just didn't take it at all, multiple days in a row, weeks at a time.
Was it hard on you to go on and off it? Like, does your body get used to it? It doesn't have withdrawals or anything?
Yeah, no withdrawals. So in my mind, I was being responsible, doing the right thing. I'd gone through all the procedures to be on this, and it was helping. It was addressing some of the problems. Now, when I get to the actual misprescription of it, there's some nuance because when I got out in 2014 and went to the VA for my disability and compensation claims, as I was instructed to do when I got out, they rated me ultimately at 90% disability, and I had like 70% for PTSD. And at the time, I found this out later doing some research. The VA had this huge scandal where docs were misdiagnosing TBI as PTSD on purpose because their justification was that PTSD goes away and we can bring these ratings down and not have to pay out veterans, for the disability claims. And so despite having multiple documented TBIs in my medical records and that I claimed it, they gave me 0% on that. And so when my primary care doctor went to go prescribe that, I had 0% for TBI. So there's no contraindication, where this is not an ideal drug for someone with traumatic brain injury.
I gotcha.
And so, this all comes out after the fact because of this incident that occurred. So leading up to that incident, it happened February 15th, 2022. And, I started my company in March of 2021. So I had that 1 year runway, right? And we're coming up on February. It's like towards the tail end of January. And I know that, we only got about a month and a half left. I've got employees that are on overhead with me, helping to try to build the business. But we just don't have the revenue, the cash flow to be able to support them without that investment funding, right? So like the contracts that we have only are going to cover so much overhead.
Yeah.
And so I know that, shit's about to go down and I'm going to have to make some really hard decisions. So, I just did what I do best and like went to work and, and that's that whole path, right? Like adversity and overcome it or become a victim and succumb to it. Right. Like, so, and I chose that other path. I'm going to find a way out, and so all I could do is just work harder. And the thing that I sacrificed was my sleep. I just went back to what I knew. And, I was working crazy hours and we were starting to see some success. I locked in a couple of contracts. We're licensed for private investigative services. So I was, doing this private investigative work for a couple of commercial companies. And, it was intensive, right? Like the amount of work that I had to put into that was crazy. And so I'm sleeping like 2 or 3 hours a night, just doing everything I can to just find new opportunities. And so we found an opportunity with MARSOC where ultimately this software tool that I've developed now at the time was under early development, and this contract vehicle that we found with another prime that I had originally worked for. So I had a good relationship with them. I leveraged that. They had an R&D contract, which they were the sole source award to, and research and development for cyber. And so basically we would be able to leverage that vehicle to bring MARSOC in as the customer and develop this tool in tandem with their requirements, right? And so in real time, we're developing it and getting feedback, user feedback for what they need on the back end. And so the 2 weeks leading up to this event, I'm just like crushing it, going to all these different meetings, pulling other entities into the fold on this, because you can't do anything alone. You got to find the experts that are really good at their aspect of it and bring them into it, right, as a team. And so I'm building the team, getting everything ready, and I secure this meeting with MARSOC to go pitch them and get their final buy-in so that we can get this contract off the ground and running. And this is going to fix everything, So the meeting's for February 15th at 10:30 in the morning. Obviously, I've been working my ass off, so my family's suffering from this. I'm not spending any time with them. So the day before is Valentine's Day, and I took the whole day off. I wanted to be with my wife, instead of like going down the night before and being there. So I spend the day with her, and because I took that day off, I fell behind on something. I had to get that PI work completed, the report collated and finalized to get out the door the next morning. It was due the 15th. And so I stayed up till about midnight working on that, and just finally had to crash. I went to sleep for about an hour, and I woke up, finished the report, and then got on the road. And, I was under extreme stress, a lack of sleep, and then this drug, and, high amounts of caffeine just to, stay alive and make the drive down there.
So you were still on the Nuvigil at this point?
Yes. And something happened along the way down there. It just, the medication took over, and all the psychosis and the hallucinations happened. I completely blacked out. I don't even remember getting to my friend's house, which the kind of goal was to get to a friend's house, drop my vehicle off right on base with him because I didn't have access to get on the compound anymore. And at some point driving into that area, something about just being back in that, my old stomping grounds, which I hadn't been down there.
Fayetteville or what?
No, Jacksonville.
Jacksonville.
Yep. So I'm driving over to Stone Bay where MARSOC has its headquarters. I hadn't been down there in years, so perhaps something of that nature brought the flashbacks or something. I don't know. But I just completely blacked out. And I get to his house, and, this is all based on their testimony, some footage from his Ring camera, phone calls, text messages, and some CCTV footage. But ultimately, we were able to kind of piece things together. And, he knew something was wrong right away because I wasn't acting normal. And he called another friend of mine who came off base, and they had me both at the house, and were just trying to get me to stay there. They told me that, we can't take you on base like this. There's something going on. And, they're just trying to keep me contained. And at some point I decided to leave, got in my vehicle and started driving home. I must have known something wasn't right. And, you go into fight or flight, right? So at some point I pull over at a location along the route home, right outside of Jacksonville, and got out of my car. Was pretty angry, slammed my phone on the ground and was smashing it. Apparently, I'd been talking to my wife and thought she was the devil, and I was here to purge evil from the world. And I got my pistol out of my car and just started wildly shooting it into the air and put a couple rounds into traffic, hit 2 vehicles passing by. Fortunately, no one was injured. Just kind of hit the exterior of the vehicles. 2 rounds did. And I shot up my own car. Ended up putting a round right through the center console and hit we know all this from after the fact. The vehicle got totaled, but at the time it was still running, and I got back in it and drove further until it just kind of rolled to a dead stop somewhere outside of town. Eventually my buddies got me on the phone and got me to share my GPS location, and they came and picked me up, brought me back to that house. But when they got to that site, and these, raiders, right? So like, they know their stuff. They know what to look for and everything. It was a pretty obvious site. The vehicle had been destroyed. There's just smoke all over the inside of it. The heater core had exploded and thrown antifreeze or whatever the heater fluid is everywhere, and melted down the computer essentially. But so they knew something had happened. My pistol was slide locked to the rear. So my buddy knew something was wrong. But they saw that as the crime scene. It wasn't necessarily a crime in their minds because I'd shot my own vehicle. No one was injured. There were no police there. So, their thoughts were like, all right, we got to get you to safety, get you to a mental health hospital. By that point, my wife was already coming down from Virginia. And we know, like, through discovery where the detectives had released all this information, text messages and everything, she already knew right then there was a medical or it was a reaction from the medication. And, and that's in text messages, right? Like, we have that as evidence. The state has that as evidence. The testimonies from these raiders, like, it's all there. You just got to put all those pieces together and look at it as what happened is the medication caused this incident. It was not a criminal action. I didn't intend to do that. I was not physically or consciously aware of what was going on. But ultimately, we started to drive back up to Virginia, left the vehicle at a shop there, got it towed and whatnot. And I'm still not like there. At some point along the way back up to Virginia, Onslow County Sheriff, which is the county where this happened, detective calls and starts asking questions, and I'm talking to him, and I really don't remember much of this conversation. I know that I was speaking to law enforcement, but I don't remember the conversation. I only have the transcripts. Ultimately, he basically said, like, hey, we need to talk to you. And I was like, all right, well, you're talking to me. What can I help you with? And they're like, well, we have some video footage. You look pretty angry, and we just need to make sure you're okay. And I told them that I was okay. I'm with my wife in Virginia and, headed home. They said, well, we need to see you. And I said, well, I can FaceTime you, whatever you need, I'm here, but I'm in Virginia now. They said, well, no, we need to see you in person. We need to be able to close our case out. And I said, okay, do I need a lawyer? Is there something wrong? And they said, well, as a U.S. citizen, anytime you're dealing with law enforcement, you're entitled to a lawyer. But there's no charges. You have nothing to worry about. We just need to see you in person and verify that this is you and be able to close our case out. And I said, okay, well, if that's the case, can I come back down there, on Monday? And they said, yeah, that'd be fine. And so I have all these transcripts, and that was not the case. As soon as we got off the call, that detective filed a warrant for my arrest in Virginia as a felon fugitive from justice. And, so I get back to Virginia, and by this point, it's like the day after, and it's evening, and I'm starting to kind of like be myself again.
Had you stopped taking the medication?
Oh yeah.
Do you normally take it once a day?
Once a day in the mornings.
A couple questions before we get further into the story. What was the last point that you remember driving down there?
Driving into Jacksonville,
and then it's black, and then there wasn't like and then I remember from here on it was more of a gradual.
It was gradual, like just feeling like, have you ever fainted?
I haven't.
Okay. Like when you come back from that, it's like almost. Have you ever been like frag or like a concussion grenade?
Yeah, I've been knocked out.
Yeah, so it's like that. When you come back to, you're like trying to figure out what's going on and get your bearings.
Yeah,
it was a lot of that, but in and out.
Is there a moment that's legit the first moment that you can for sure remember?
Yes.
Which was what?
Getting arrested.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Okay, so even when you're talking to him, you're going back. It's still foggy, and you don't really remember much of it.
No.
So at what point were you arrested?
So that night,
okay.
It was dark. So, this was February. So it had to have been at least after 6 p.m. They basically did a call out. They had their full SWAT team, dogs, breachers, armored vehicles,
wow,
everything you can imagine.
But your kids are in the house?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my in-laws, because, they came in to watch the kids while my wife came down to get me. And, they fortunately, our sheriff's department in my hometown are very prudent and tactically, efficient and just intelligent people. And they gave me the opportunity to come out, and of course I'm going to do that. I'm not trying to put up a fight. But I still didn't know what was going on. I, at this point, thought I had only shot my car. And so I go outside, and my wife had grabbed the phone, right before I got off with them, and she's like, "Hey, we have small children. I don't want any lights. Like this can be done professionally because I don't need my children knowing what's going on." And thank God she had that kind of awareness to make that call. But I went outside, and it was very surreal. They just grabbed me, walked me through my backyard to the alley, where they had like another 10 vehicles and a whole complement waiting to breach the back door. And they put me in cuffs and drove me to the station and booked me.
They charge you at that point?
No. All I knew is that I was being charged as a felon fugitive from justice from North Carolina under extradition laws. And so the idea was, North Carolina was going to come up, extradite me back to their state to give me charges. However, they left me in jail for 2.5 weeks while they tried to find a driver, one person, just come up and get me. And their justification was that this is 2022. Their justification was that COVID was a reason that they could draw it out as long as they wanted. And they took it all the way up until the day before. Like if they hadn't come and picked me up that next day, I would have been released. So it's, there's definitely
gaming.
There's some gamemanship going on, and so I get down to North Carolina, and I'm released within an hour on bail.
What was your charge in North Carolina?
So when I get to North Carolina, I find out that I'm being charged with 2 felonies and 2 misdemeanors. So the felonies are something along the lines of like criminal intent, or criminal conduct and discharging a firearm into occupied vehicle, some of that nature, or felony conduct, something like that. So 2 charges of that, and then a misdemeanor for violation of a city ordinance, discharging a firearm. And I guess one of the rounds hit the side of a building, and so there's property damage in excess of $200. And so at this point I get released. I have my lawyer, who my wife is already, she's amazing. She's an incredible person. She basically made it her job to figure out what was going on and fight like hell for me. And so she had secured a really great lawyer down in North Carolina who's a former Marine. So he gets it, and in fact, he had worked as a prosecutor in this county. And so he knows that game. And basically he shows me the footage, the CCTV footage of it happening.
Where was the footage from? Like a restaurant or something?
Yeah, adjacent building, just looking down into that parking lot. And that was just earth-shattering for me to see myself acting in a way that I couldn't even remember. But much less, like in my conscious state of mind, I would never act like that. Like as a trained operator, we know how to handle firearms, and I was not doing that. I was one-handed, whipping this thing around in the air. It just looks like someone having a mental health crisis, period. And, and then my lawyer tells me that the prosecution wants to charge me with these felonies, and I'm facing 35 years.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And so since that March of 2022, when I got out, I've been fighting this, and at first, for the first year, we were quiet about it because, one, I was super ashamed and just embarrassed that this had happened. Like I go from being this super high performing individual, as an operator, intelligence contractor for JSOC, and then running my own defense contracting company, to someone who's being looked at as a criminal and treated worse than they treat murderers. Like there's murderers getting out on almost nothing, and so for the longest time, I just didn't know how to really deal with it. And I put everything into the hands of my lawyer who was fighting this. And we had the impression that the district attorney and the prosecutor would be willing to work with us to figure out how to either reach a plea that wouldn't destroy my life and mark me a felon and make it impossible for me to continue earning for my family, with my security clearance and all these things. So that was our goal. And the district attorney strung us along for over a year. And then, and they were playing some games. And then ultimately it came down to, no, you're going to trial. You're going to face a jury trial, 35 years hanging over your head now. And at that point, I knew that I had to do everything in my power to fight that. And so I had to go public, with my story, and thank God I did. It is the best thing that has happened to me. It's allowed me to grow as an individual and find true healing. I paint this picture of like I was in this like victimhood state, but I wasn't. Like the first place I went when I got out of jail was to the VA hospital, back up in Virginia where I live. And actually it wasn't. I learned my lesson with the clinic I had been going to in Fredericksburg, and I found a clinic out in Martinsburg, West Virginia. They run something called the Hope Center, which is actually one of the best PTSD facilities through the VA for veterans of the OIF, OEF era. And so I've been under, care of a psychologist at this clinic, since then. And in addition to that, I've undergone some pretty intense and rigorous treatment, not only for my, PTS, but for my TBIs. And, I chose to not be a victim.
Yeah.